It was nearly 5 a.m. in Manhattan. The sky was still dark, the city pulsing in its own rhythm of sleepless ambition. Inside the glass and steel tower of Ashton and Creed Capitol, the night shift was winding down. Security guards leaned on their elbows, screens flickering, elevators dinged, coffee cups emptied. Tasha Reed moved like a shadow between the empty cubicles. She didn't make noise. She didn't chat. In 3 years of cleaning floors, dusting off billion-dollar desks, and emptying trash bins filled with luxury snack wrappers, she had learned the art of invisibility. The building glowed from within, 28 floors tall, every inch polished, surveilled, secured. But no one noticed the small black woman in the gray uniform, earbuds tucked in but rarely playing music, just silence, her own thoughts. Until this morning, she was on the 26th floor, finishing up when she heard it, a soft thud. She paused, mop in hand. Another, a slow, deliberate knock, not metal on metal, but skin, faint. From above, she looked down the hallway. The elevator indicator for lift B was blinking, frozen between the 27th and 28th floors. She squinted. Odd. She stepped closer. Lift A worked fine. C and D were idle, but B was stuck. Its red digital number pulsated like a heartbeat. Inside the security booth at the corner, 2 guards sipped stale coffee, arguing over sports. "Excuse me," Tasha said, cautiously. They barely looked up. "That elevator," she pointed. "It's stuck. Someone's inside." One of the guards, a heavy-set man with sleepy eyes, waved a hand dismissively. "Tech team will be here in an hour. Don't worry about it." "But I think I heard someone knocking." "Probably the wiring," he muttered, going back to his donut. "It's not your job, sweetheart. Go mop something." Tasha hesitated. She looked again at the elevator doors, then turned, walking away. But not toward the mop. She headed for the maintenance closet. 5 minutes later, she returned with her own toolbox. Rusty, scratched. Letters faded from the lid, but still legible. Reed and Son, elevator repair. Her father's box. She crouched beside the panel. Lift B, old design. She knew the wiring pattern. Had watched her dad take apart dozens of these when she was a teenager, back before he got sick, before the hospital bills, before she dropped out of college to work nights. She unscrewed the panel. The override circuit was still intact, though the failsafe had tripped. Manual override could work. Tasha took a breath, remembered the smell of oil and copper and coffee on her father's breath when he'd say, "You treat these machines like people. You listen. You respect what they carry." She rerouted the breaker, hot-wired the emergency bypass. Then, "Hello?" came a voice, muffled. Tasha leaned close. "You okay?" A pause. "Who's there?" "Just the janitor," she said simply. "Hang tight, I've got you." Inside the stuck elevator, William Creed wiped sweat from his brow, the CEO of Ashton and Creed Capital. Net worth, $4.3 billion, tailor-made overcoat, Italian shoes, and a furious schedule that didn't account for a broken elevator at dawn. He'd tried calling. Nothing. Signal dead. His phone was at 3%. His voice hoarse. And now someone was speaking to him, a woman, calm, precise. He'd expected a technician, not her. He crouched low, pressed his ear to the panel. "You're fixing it?" he asked. Trying, she answered. You're not one of the techs? Nope. Then who are you? Tasha. I clean your floors. William stared at the panel. Are you insane? You shouldn't be touching that. And you shouldn't be stuck in there breathing recycled air. So let's call it even. He couldn't see her, but the authority in her voice was unsettling. Outside, Tasha worked, sweat forming on her neck. Her fingers moved quickly, methodically, just like her father taught. The elevator was old, the system dated, but she was close. Then, a soft ding. The car shifted. She braced herself as the motor engaged, crawling the lift slowly down a few inches, just enough. She pulled open the service latch. The doors creaked. Light flooded in, and there he was. William Creed stood motionless inside the cab, blinking at the narrow sliver of the world opening before him. He stepped out. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to pause. He was older than she'd thought. Gray at the temples, sharp eyes. His overcoat was drenched from the warm, stale air of the shaft. You, he started. She stood, wiping her hands on a rag. Elevator's clear. Probably a relay issue. Tell your team to check the override tomorrow. William looked around. The guards were still inside the booth. Not a single one had come to check on him. He turned to them. Did either of you help her? Their mouths opened. Closed. No, sir. He nodded slowly. Of course not. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. Tasha watched him go. No thank you. No name. Just a heavy silence trailing his exit. She didn't expect anything else. She went back to her cart, her mop. Her toolbox clicked shut. By 7 a.m., she was finished. She changed in the locker room. Her hand smelled of metal and old oil. Her uniform folded into her bag. She never spoke of it, not even when, hours later, she was called into the building manager's office. You violated protocol, the manager said, not looking at her. Tampering with building equipment without authorization. That's a liability. I got him out, she said. We reviewed the footage. You accessed a live electrical panel with no permit. I'm afraid we have to let you go. That was it. No mention of the stuck billionaire, no acknowledgement, just a signed form and a cardboard box. By evening, she was gone, and that, she thought, was the end of the story, until a black Cadillac pulled up outside the employee entrance. The driver stepped out. Miss Reed, Mr. Creed would like a word. Tasha hesitated. The sun had long since dipped behind the Manhattan skyline, turning the glass towers into silhouettes. Her box of belongings felt heavier in her arms than it should have. A pair of sneakers, a sweater, the photo of her and her father fixing their first elevator, all of it neatly packed and reduced to what she had left. The driver didn't speak again, just waited, holding the door of the black Cadillac open like it was inevitable that she'd step in. She almost walked away. But then she remembered the way William Creed had stared at the guards that morning, not with rage, but with something colder, disappointment. She exhaled and slid into the leather seat. The car smelled of wood polish and power. The man himself sat on the opposite side, still in his overcoat, now folded carefully across his lap. He didn't speak for a moment, just looked at her, not through her, at her. You didn't wait for permission, he said. No, sir. You overrode one of the most expensive elevator systems in Midtown. Yes. You could have been electrocuted. I wasn't. A pause. Why did you do it? Tasha turned her head toward the window. Because no one else did. That hung in the air like smoke. He leaned forward, studying her. What's your background? South Bronx. I used to help my dad fix elevators until he got sick. Dropped out of college to pay the bills. Cleaning paid more than waiting tables. You still have your license? Lapsed. You have potential. No offense, she said, finally turning back to him, but this sounds like a setup. You have me fired and then pick me up in a Cadillac like it's some kind of test. He didn't flinch. I didn't know you were fired until this afternoon. HR doesn't tell me everything. But I requested your file the moment I saw the footage. Footage? There are cameras in the elevator shafts. One of them caught your face through the service door. You looked like someone doing something that mattered. Tasha swallowed. William Creed reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a document. It had a gold seal on the corner and was clipped to a manila folder. He slid it across the seat. Tasha glanced at the heading. Internal Personnel Structure. Ashton and Creed. Capital Position. Director of Internal Accountability and Response Operations. Name, Tasha Reed. She blinked. This a joke? It's a test, but not the kind you think, Creed said. You were the only one who moved when something broke. Everyone else, security, dispatch, staff, waited. Or worse, ignored. That's not just failure. That's culture. She stared at him, unsure. I need someone who sees the cracks, he continued. Someone who doesn't need titles to take action. Someone like you. I'm not corporate, she said slowly. I don't speak your language. I fix things with my hands. Then teach the people who don't. Another long silence. You're serious? She asked finally. I'm already restructuring this company. You're my first appointment. You'll have access, authority, and discretion. You'll answer to me and no one else. Tasha's pulse thundered in her ears. She looked at the contract again. I was a janitor this morning, she said, and tonight you're something else. The next day, the office buzzed with confusion. It started with whispers about the woman in the navy pantsuit, the one with braids pulled back into a neat knot, the one wearing a badge that said People Operations Executive Access. No one recognized her at first, not until she stepped into the security booth at 7:13 a.m. and calmly placed a folder on the desk. Inside, a printed transcript of the night's elevator incident, a time log, and video stills. She looked at the man who had dismissed her the day before. You didn't respond to an emergency. You refused assistance. You're relieved of duty. The guard stammered. You can't. But his voice faltered as her badge blinked green at the override panel. Security override. Creed clearance. I just did, Tasha said. She walked away without looking back. The HR floor fell silent as she entered. Every intern, every assistant, every mid-level director turned to watch. Some pretended not to recognize her. Others didn't bother hiding their stares. She walked with quiet purpose, not rushing, not apologizing for taking space. She'd walked these halls for 3 years as a ghost. Now every footstep echoed. She met with 3 department heads that morning. She asked them a single question. When something goes wrong, who do your people call? None of them had the same answer. She wrote that down. Then she walked the building, floor by floor. She shook hands. She asked names. She asked the janitors where the water pressure was worst, which rooms overheated, who didn't return key cards. She asked the questions no one else thought to ask. By noon, she had a notebook full of answers. By evening, she had a list of 10 names to promote and 3 to review. When she returned to the top floor, William Creed was waiting. "Well?" he asked. She dropped the notebook on his desk. "This building is glossy on the outside, but inside, there's rot. People who don't care, people who cover, people who hope no one's watching. And now? Now someone is." He smiled, the kind of smile not often seen on billionaires, the kind touched with genuine respect. "You understand what this means, don't you?" he asked. "That people will hate me?" "Yes." "That they'll question why I'm here?" "Yes." "That some of them will think this is charity?" "Exactly." Tasha nodded. "Then let them." She turned toward the office windows. The city gleamed beyond the glass, indifferent, relentless, beautiful. And for the first time in years, she wasn't cleaning the view. She was part of it. By week 3, everyone knew her name. Tasha Reed, Director of People Accountability, a title no one had heard before, one that didn't quite fit into the neat little structure of Ashton and Creed Capital. And that was the point. She didn't attend executive lunches. She didn't sit through PowerPoints. She walked floors, talked to night staff, watched, and she kept firing people, not out of vengeance, out of necessity. People who covered up safety complaints, managers who silenced whistleblowers, an assistant VP who falsified wellness surveys, all of them gone, not with drama, not with headlines, but with quiet HR documentation and Creed's unmistakable signature. She wasn't cleaning floors anymore. She was cleaning house. And people noticed. At first, they whispered, "She used to mop this hallway. Didn't she work here as a janitor? Creed must be losing it, giving her that kind of power." But then, things started working. Elevators didn't get stuck anymore. Maintenance requests were fulfilled in hours, not weeks. A junior accountant fainted in the lobby, and instead of being ignored, was rushed to a clinic by the new emergency response protocol Tasha personally implemented. Employees began to speak up. For the first time, they believed someone was listening. She kept her office small, just one chair, a plain desk, no framed degrees or titles. But on the wall behind her was a monitor, a live feed from every service hallway, every security cam tucked into forgotten corners of the building, the places where things usually went wrong. And below that monitor, a brass nameplate, Tasha Reed, Head of People Accountability. She didn't choose that title. William Creed did. And when she'd asked him why, he'd said, "Because sometimes you need to give people a reason to look up, to finally see the person who always saw everything." But not everyone looked up. Some looked down, in discomfort, in shame, like the head of security, the man who, just weeks earlier, had dismissed her with a donut and a joke, now called to her office. She didn't raise her voice. She just opened a folder, showed him footage, read him statements from employees who'd reported him ignoring safety checks, including that morning, the elevator, the man trapped inside. "I didn't think she'd actually do it," he muttered, as if that made it better. "She did," Tasha replied, "and you didn't." He left without his badge. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired. It's not easy holding people accountable, but it's harder living in a world where no one is. William Creed dropped by her office on a Friday. No announcement, no assistant trailing behind him. Just him, holding 2 coffees and wearing a cashmere coat he hadn't buttoned. "I hear you scared the legal team again," he said. "They'll live." He grinned, offering her one of the coffees. "I've been getting messages from our partners. They want to know who you are." "And what did you tell them?" "That you're the person who gets things done." She took a slow sip. "You still think this is going to work?" "I don't think," he said. "I know." She looked at him. "Why me?" William leaned against the wall, thoughtful. "I grew up in buildings like this," he said. "Polished, high, powerful. And I always assumed the system worked, that people in charge cared. But the day I got stuck in that elevator, I realized something. No one was coming for me." He paused. "Except you." She didn't reply. "You didn't know who I was, and you still came. That's what people should do." "Exactly," he said. "So now you're the person I trust to make sure they do." By month 4, Tasha had her own team, not made up of consultants or suits. She brought in a retired EMT who used to patch up interns with anxiety attacks, a janitor from another tower who'd designed a safer storage system but was ignored, a quiet admin with a master's in conflict resolution who'd been stuck doing lunch orders for a decade. She called them the Watchtower Team. They weren't flashy, but they got things done. On her wall, she posted a mantra. "It's not about being in power. It's about protecting the powerless." And slowly, the building changed. People who never felt seen before now had someone in their corner. Someone who had once stood exactly where they did, at the bottom, invisible, but never silent again. One evening, long after most had gone home, Tasha walked the building alone. She stepped into Lift B, the same one, now fully modernized, reinforced, safer. She pressed 28. As the elevator climbed, she ran her fingers along the wall, where her nameplate had once scratched during the manual override. When the doors opened, she stepped into the top floor, into the world she was never supposed to enter, not as a cleaner, but now, as someone who made sure no one else ever got stuck, silenced, or forgotten. She walked into her office, sat down beneath the monitors, and smiled, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just fixing things, she was being seen.